preparing to live stream at the moment. So it's still preparing just for a few minutes. Right, it is live now.
Hello, women, and happy Mother's Day. We are so happy to be here at the United Nations. My name is Kara Dansky. I'm president of the U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International, and several of us have gathered here because we have a few things to say.
Hi, my name is Sarah Castillo, and I am a mother, a female parent. I was born because my mother is also female, as is true for everyone on Earth today. I stand here because there are people and organizations who find those words radical and even hateful. We now live in a time where the true nature of our existence, our biological reality, that mothers are women and mothers birth the world, is being erased. It's being erased by UN Women when they say that men are women. It's being erased by their support of an ideology that says through medical intervention, men can have babies suckle their breast and be nourished. An ideology that is orchestrating direct infringements on the rights of mothers to know where their child is and who is caring for them if those mothers dare to question this ideology. Mothers are being threatened with losing their children if they do not agree to subject their child to lifelong experimental medical interventions. They are being called hateful Nazis if they simply care that pornographic books are being read to their children. A mother's instinct to protect her child from harm is undoubtedly the most primal instinct in all creation. It is something that can be seen across cultures, across species, and since the beginning of time. Our survival depends on it, and yet we are allowing, even encouraging, the erosion of that instinct. But a mother's bond is also one of the strongest and most elemental functions of that instinct. And as a mother, I say, it will not be surrendered without resistance. Happy Mother's Day.
My name is Leah Keith, and I'm the founder of WOLF, which is the Women's Liberation Front. Z. Budapest said, there are two kinds of people, mothers and their children. Mothers and their children. That's it. Every human being who has ever lived came from the body of a woman, literally from her body. Her body sheltered yours, fed it, built it. Her breath, her blood, her bones built you. When there wasn't enough, she gave you hers. In some cultures, it's assumed that for every baby born, the mother will lose a tooth. When my mother was pregnant with me, her hair went gray and she needed glasses for the first time. The sacrifice is immense and ancient. The woman, born from the woman, back 2 million years for the genus Homo, back 80 million years for the class of mammals, back 650 million years to animals as a kingdom. And older still, sexual reproduction, with all the sacrifice it requires from females, is older than redwood trees. It's older than forests. It's older than the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's older than the rings of Saturn. Sexual reproduction is 2 billion years old. That's how long the ancient mothers have been giving all they had, all they could, so their children could be alive today. So yes, the debt can never be repaid. We owe our mothers reverence, our love, and our protection. Instead, here's what mothers get. Battering, for instance. In the United States, a man beats up a woman every 9 seconds. And 1/3 of battering starts when a woman is pregnant. 1/3. And male violence, a man's willful fist or foot, is the #1 cause of birth defects. Around the globe, it's women and their children who make up the bulk of the poor, the hungry, the war-torn and dead. The numbers are a trauma all their own, I know. But it's this institution, the United Nations, that has been providing those numbers for decades. And suddenly, They don't know what a woman is. Well, they know what a woman is. Every single person alive knows what a woman is because we all came out of one. Only women can do that. Mary Daly said in 1979 that the essential message of patriarchy is necrophilia. I have no other word for a movement that rejects the animal integrity of the female body and that hates it so much. I have no other word for a movement that is just destroying the generative organs of children. What other word is there besides necrophilia? The genderists intend gleefully to do away with biology entirely. Billionaire Martine Rothblatt, one of the transvestic fetishists that is funding this movement, says point blank that he wants to replace all life with nanobots while humans upload themselves into computers. Understand what you are witnessing: narcissistic rage driving these aggrieved men to their predictable endpoint, necrophilia. Enraged that he can never be a woman, which he must know beneath his dense layers of denial, he would destroy all life in revenge. A family annihilator with the whole planet in his sights. These men are telling us who they are. Believe them. He says sex isn't real, that women are a pornographic joke, that mothers are a collection of birthing body parts, that he'd rather exist in a machine than remember that he was born of a woman. Believe him. When bison are under attack, they pack into a tight circle. Protected at the center are the mothers and babies. Next are the older calves, weaned and vulnerable. A defensive ring of cows without young comes next. And finally, facing out, stand the bulls. We are under attack. He has leveled mountains. Believe him. The last scraps of forest are on fire. The ancient ice is melting. The animals, 650 million years of them, are almost gone. Believe him. If we all make that tight circle, mothers and babies of every species at the center, protected until the last, and plant our feet firmly on our still living earth, we can face him down. He has the rancid thrills of sadism and the sterile dreams of machines. We have love and the miracle of our animal bodies and the stalwart light of every dawn. Don't let him win.
Hello, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Fedak, Board Secretary of Women's Liberation Front, same as Leah, and also a mathematician who studied pediatric oncology. 2 years ago, Women's Liberation Front, along with 43 other organizations, responded to a call for input on gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity by an independent expert. We told the United Nations Human Rights Council this report is in violation of United Nations foundational documents. We told the United Nations about the careers that were destroyed when scientists dared to test the claims gender ideologists expected us to accept on faith. We told them about the incarcerated women who were locked up with violent offenders in violation of the Geneva Conventions. We warned that so-called gender-affirming surgeries were conversion therapy and sterilization of youth who would have otherwise grown up to be same-sex attracted adults. We warned that the forced teaming of lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals with people who claim to have a gender identity meant that when the needs of those groups diverged, then those exclusively attracted to the same sex were asked to be nice and stop advocating for their own rights. We warned that there was no evidence that everybody has a gender identity, that indeed we do not have gender identities, and a single person without a gender identity is enough to prove the claim false. We warned that this was a regressive belief system designed to roll back protections for women, girls, gay men, and lesbians. 2 years later, the independent expert has heard similar concerns from other women's advocacy groups, lesbians, and gay men. And what have they done in response? Nothing. Gender ideology is a fundamentally manipulative ideology. You can tell because manipulative ideologies all use the same basic strategies. They encourage people not to think for themselves. They appeal to emotion. They resist questioning. They threaten and lie and coerce. But most importantly, they silence. They fight the flow of any information that conflicts with their belief system. Manipulative ideologies work by silencing their detractors. They do not hold up to scrutiny. The only reasoning available to them is faulty reasoning because the ideas they are defending are not true. Anyone who disagrees is painted as evil, and that label of evil lets their followers justify violence against anyone who challenges them. If the United Nations truly cares about ending violence against women, anyone with a same-sex partner, and anyone who does not conform to sex stereotypes, we ask it to focus on objective truth and effective problem solving. Take in all available information. Listen to the women who are raped and impregnated in prisons by men pretending to be women. Listen to the girls who held it in all day after their school made the bathrooms mixed sex and boys kicked down the stall doors. Listen to the lesbians who were coerced into corrective rape by men. This violence is unacceptable, and as long as we are not allowed to question gender ideology, it will not be addressed or resolved. We do not have the power the UN does, but we are backed by the truth. Smoke and mirrors will only last so long. We will keep filling in the gaps, and the truth will come out. Whether it is today or tomorrow or a year from now or 5 years from now, it will come out. United Nations, how many more people have to be hurt before you listen?
Good afternoon. My name is Levy. I'm Vice President of WDI USA and coordinator of its Lesbian Caucus. Today, we celebrate our mothers, our primary beloved female parents, the parent we all knew first. In fact, we humans knew who our mothers were way before we even had the idea that we might also have fathers. The vocal sound that means mother is both astonishingly ancient and astonishingly universal. The word for mother is mater in Latin, mat in Russian, mata in Hindi, amma in Basque, ima in Hebrew, mama in Swahili, mama in the Native American language Quechua, and mama in Mandarin. The meaning of this ancient and universal word has never changed through at least 6 millennia and probably more, because its meaning is rooted in obvious biological reality and because its meaning has always been dear to the hearts of all humans. Mother means our primary beloved female parent, and it means nothing else. And everybody in the world has always known it and knows it still. The word mother has historically been spoken with reverence and with the most profound affection for those who create life within their female bodies. Now, there are some who would claim that any word uttered by a woman to describe only women is offensive and should be unspeakable, including the word woman. Other words forbidden now, where they describe biological reality, include lesbian, vagina, female, biological, homosexual, sex, and even reality. The claim is that biological reality itself is so offensive that speaking of it is literal violence that justifies physically violent retaliation. But I'm telling you, no one is going to silence us or force us to lie. So here's some more unspeakable stuff exclusively about mothers. Only mothers can create the perfect food for infants from their own bodies. Only a mother's breasts. Okay, let me say that again, because the word breasts is now considered unspeakable in some circles, and I'm here to speak the unspeakable. Only a mother's breasts can produce milk. And to be clear, any whitish fluid that oozes from a male nipple, thanks to chemistry and technology, is not mother's milk. It is a chemical cocktail, and it is intended not to nourish a child, but to sexually excite a man with a sexual fetish. And here's some more reality about who is a mother and who is not. Renting the womb of a woman who desperately needs money does not make anyone a mother. If you need a word to describe someone who rents the womb of a woman desperate for the money, John and Jane come close. You know, in the 1800s, homosexuality was described as the love that dare not speak its name, because it was considered offensive speech. To those who wish to shut down our speech, I say this: Victorian sexual stereotypes and sexual taboos are calling for you to come home. Neither magical thinking, nor magic words, nor outright lies, nor big funding from big pharma, nor taboos enforced by corrupt laws and physical brutality holds the power to obscure what everyone knows a mother is. Nor can often repeated lies keep us from speaking the truth. There are simply too many of us who see the truth, and we will never stop saying that mother means female parent. We will never stop speaking the unspeakable. All 8 billion people in the world were born from a mother who was a woman. Exactly 0 were born from anyone else. So now that I've established who we all know is being honored today, I wish everyone a happy Mother's Day.
Hi, it's great to be here for Mother's Day. And by mother, of course, everyone standing here today knows that the word means a female parent, no matter what the UN or anyone else has to say. Not all women are mothers, but only women are mothers, a fact everyone knew until about 5 minutes ago. I would like to address my remarks today to the organization UN Women. And before anyone accuses me or anyone else here today of being right-wing, I assure you I am a lifelong progressive, a feminist, and a Democrat. The organization UN Women claims to be the UN organization delivering programs, policies, and standards that uphold women's human rights and ensure that every woman and girl lives up to her full potential. And yet, UN Women seems to be of the view that some men are women. In January of this year, UN Women tweeted that, quote, trans women have the right to recognition of their self-identified gender. To UN Women, I say this: I know, you know, that men are being housed in women's prisons on the basis of their so-called self-identified gender. Surely you must also know that the UN's own standard minimum rules for the treatment of prisoners, also known as the Nelson Mandela rules, make the housing of male prisoners with vulnerable female inmates a violation of international human rights principles. Rule 11A of the Mandela rules requires specifically that the different categories of prisoners shall be kept in separate institutions or parts of institutions, taking account of their sex, among other categories. Thus, men and women shall, so far as possible, be detained in separate institutions. In an institution which receives both men and women, the whole of the premises allocated to women shall be entirely separate. Rule 52 further requires that intrusive searches, including strip and body cavity searches, be undertaken only if absolutely necessary, and that they be conducted in private by trained staff of the same sex as the prisoner. And yet, in flagrant violation of these principles, vulnerable women are being housed in locked prison cells with violent men all over the world, including in the United States. For example, in the US, in 2023 alone, at a jail near Cincinnati, Ohio, a woman reported that she awoke in her cell one morning to find a man raping her and holding his hand over her mouth. She reported that the rapist was, quote, a biological male who identifies as a female and is believed to be in some stage of, quote, gender transition. In Kansas, a man named Thomas Lamb, who was convicted of the brutal murder of one woman and the kidnapping of another, was transferred to the state women's prison in Topeka after he adopted a woman identity and started calling himself Michelle. In Montana, a man named Jeffrey Mann, who now goes by the name of Serena Alana Mann, was convicted of violently assaulting his physically and mentally disabled girlfriend and given a suspended sentence of 5 years. He had previously been convicted of assaulting a stranger with a crowbar during a road rage incident. The Montana Department of Corrections classifies him as female. In Washington State, a man named Kael Aguiar McNamee, who was convicted of attempting to kidnap a 5-year-old boy and admits to being sexually attracted to children, was sent to the women's prison directly from his holding cell in the county jail. This has been reported anonymously by a correctional officer and confirmed by the Department of Corrections press office. The state of New Jersey designated a man named Marina Matthew Voles as female on official prison records. Voles is a pornographer who had been convicted of sexually abusing and exploiting his 7-year-old daughter and sentenced to 25 years on charges of human trafficking, aggravated sexual assault, conspiracy, and endangering the welfare of a child. During his trial, prosecutors described his conduct as involving sadistic sexual abuse and as a vortex of darkness. At sentencing, the judge referred to his behavior as heinous, cruel, and depraved. He was later quietly transferred to the women's prison, even though at the time, prison records still recorded him as male. As of 2023, the state considers him to be officially female. The very same women's prison in New Jersey houses a female inmate named Kokila Hyatt, who reached out to the feminist publication Redux to report on her experiences of being housed with male inmates who claim to have a woman identity. Hyatt states, "I have been incarcerated since 2010, but nothing could have prepared me for the incoming tidal wave of a group of these males into the prison. I was completely unaware that us women would ever be housed with men. And what's more, I was left shocked at the myriad of ways the New Jersey Department of Corrections was prepared to facilitate and defend their access to our traditionally female-only space. For complaining about them, I have received backlash from the transgender males here. Their tactics ranged from verbal harassment and threats of violence to multiple allegations, causing me to be investigated by the prison. One of those allegations resulted in me being placed in a lockdown unit for 3 days. I am not the only female inmate who has experienced consequences. Other women have been harassed and bullied too." That's just a few examples, only from the US and only from the first 4.5 months of this year alone. I could provide countless other examples of women being raped and tortured in prisons in the US and globally by men who have, in the words of UN Women, a quote, self-identified gender that is somehow something other than male. This is, of course, a cruel and sadistic lie. This is happening all over the world, and UN Women has said nothing about it, even despite the fact that the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women has raised concerns about it. In December 2022, Abigail Schreier, the author of Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters, tweeted that every single rape and assault of an incarcerated woman by a biological male inmate is a preventable crime. Gender activists and the progressive politicians who bow down to the activists are responsible for every single assault. To Abigail's list, I would like to now add UN Women. UN Women, until you take a stand on behalf of women and girls all over the world, including vulnerable female inmates, you are perpetuating human rights abuses against women and girls in flagrant violation of international law. Stop it. Women are female and men are male. It's not complicated. Happy Mother's Day to all the amazing mothers out there. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene Lawrence. Like many Americans, I once thought of the UN as an international body that puts the human rights of the most marginalized at the heart of its decisions. They have done many good things for women, including passing the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, in 1979, which almost all member countries agreed to implement. Therefore, most women probably assume that their interests continue to be promoted in global politics and development. They probably also assume that when we are speaking about women, we are all talking about the same group of people. But lately, a new group of men who call themselves women have co-opted the word. They are, by definition, an elitist group because it takes tremendous hubris, money, and power to think that you can bend words to mean what you want them to mean. This luxury belief system of gender identity ideology promotes a way to exist apart from your body. It has sold us the idea of the transgender child by promoting the narrative that some children can be born in the wrong body, a problem fixed through drugs, surgeries, and endless modifications. These advocates even have the audacity to brand gender identity ideology as a path to self-determination or a way to be your true self. On the contrary, it promotes the illusion that you can become something you're not. The illusion of one's true self remains always out of reach because an external solution can never cure an internal problem. Gender identity ideology is also marketed as a civil rights movement, but it's not. Its biggest promoters have infiltrated big finance, big pharma, big tech, large humanitarian organizations like the UN, and all international corporations. These corporations stand to profit handsomely from children's distress around their developing bodies. The other benefit comes to men who feel entitled to fulfill their fetish to present as women and gain unfettered access to all public spaces designed for women. If this was a grassroots movement of the oppressed, it would not need to operate by coercing people to say things they know to be untrue or to stay silent when critical safeguarding boundaries are crossed. The proliferation of this all-encompassing ideology affects us all, of course, but it affects mothers in a particular way. Mothers, more than any other group, have a visceral connection to another person that can never be replaced by the co-opting of human reproduction longed for by gender identity ideologues. The power of this connection is clear from the way that many cultures joke and the insults that we hear about mothers. When you really want to hurt somebody, the person you attack is their mother. So pretending now that women are now a nebulous category by replacing sex with gender identity, as UN Women now does, is to insult all women, but particularly one's own mother. Not all women become mothers, of course, but all mothers are women. All mothers understand the vulnerability that comes with this gift of being able to create life. They understand that pregnant women and new mothers require protections that no man will ever need. The way this ideologically determined language and policy shift has been forced onto developing countries in the global South without their voluntary consent makes it even more shameful. Replacing sex with gender identity will undermine all the progress made on behalf of women under CEDAW, and we call on the UN to return to implementing the promises for women's rights that it made under this convention. Women and girls have come too far to turn back now. Happy Mother's Day.
Hello, my name is Jessica Gonzalez. I'm the founder of Turf Collective and a proud member of WDI's Black Women's Caucus. My dear friend, Lorraine Nolan, is the leader of WDI's Black Women's Caucus and sadly could not be here today. These are her words. My name is Lorraine Nolan. I'm a member of Women's Declaration International's Board of Directors and the coordinator of our organization's Black Women's Caucus. I'm a mother, and like all mothers, an adult human female. Today, I am celebrating and giving honor to those special women in our lives we call mothers. I celebrate mothers who gave birth. It does not matter if it was a natural birth or a C-section. I celebrate you because none of us would be here without you. I celebrate mothers through adoption. You are not less than. You are just as much of a mother as I am. I celebrate mothers who cannot parent their children and desperately wish they could. Maybe you lost your children to the system, to violence, to disease, to women who have lost their mothers. Mother's Day is painful because your mom passed away. Maybe your mother is on her deathbed, and this is your final Mother's Day with her. This day is extremely hard for you. While I won't celebrate your tragedy, know that you are in my heart. May you experience peace today that goes beyond anything we can possibly understand. I celebrate working mothers and stay-at-home mothers. Thank you for raising the next generation and perhaps the next generation of women that will fight for women. I celebrate single mothers, whether by choice or by chance, Our society may blame you for all its social ills, call you selfish, anything they can say to tear you down, but I call you brave. I celebrate women filling in the role of mothers. Maybe you didn't go through pregnancy, childbirth, or adoption to become mothers, but you stepped in to mother young women in your community, in your churches, and in the movement. To women who long to be mothers, for whatever medical reason you can't, my heart is with you too. Last, but certainly not least, I must honor Black mothers who were casualties of the Black maternal mortality crisis. You are not forgotten. You deserve better. I and many others will do what we can to enact change. We all arrived at motherhood through different paths, but one thing we all have in common is that we are women. Women are the only people who can become mothers. No man, woman, member of Congress, Senate, or the United Nations should be allowed to obscure the material essence of the one person most critical to a child's development. No person should be allowed to destroy our bond, our memories, or the objective physical reality of motherhood. We mothers are not birthing bodies. We are not host bodies. We are female people, all of us. We will be heard. We will be seen. We deserve to be addressed with respect. We are mothers. Happy Mother's Day.
All right, I really want to thank everyone who's watching the live stream. I want to thank everyone who may be watching this recording later. I want to say on behalf of the U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International, and I think I can speak hopefully for the international body of Women's Declaration International, and I also want to use my status as a member of Women's Liberation Front to say that I would like to speak on behalf of WOLF as well in saying we will not stop bringing this message to our government bodies. We in America will not stop bringing this message to the United States Congress and to the Biden administration until things change. We women all over the world will not stop bringing this message to the United Nations. To the United Nations, I hope you've heard us. Thanks, everyone.